now we have the privilege of having Eric Knudsen, who has I've known now for 3 years, who has shown that sometimes if there's an obstacle, you can figure out how to work around that obstacle and make things absolutely successful. And he is a joy to work with. It's fun to watch my fellows grow and develop into their professional selves, and think that we have maybe a little bit of input with that opportunity. And so Cara is going to be your moderator, and she's wonderful resource and asset colleague. And I'm so happy that you're here today. So I'm going to pass that over to you to talk about your important work, especially around HRE.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Yvonne. I'm so happy to be with you all today. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Let's see. There we
Kara
go.
to introduce you?
Oh, Kara, you want to introduce me? Yeah.
I'd be happy to. Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm happy to introduce, as part of our panel today, a Salem State alum who's currently working as a child welfare policy implementation specialist. And in this position, Eric studies sexual and reproductive health equity and fostering children. Eric has served for several years as Associate Director of Operations at Harbor Camps, which is a nonprofit overnight summer camp organization for marginalized youth. Prior to that, Eric was Men's Health Project Manager at the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod and worked in HIV prevention, screening, and education for 3 years. He holds a bachelor's degree in journalism, social welfare from the University of Connecticut. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you so much, Kara, for that intro. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see if I get this right. Yeah, we're doing good. Okay. All right, everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm super excited to talk about how I've been improving the lives of children through involvement with an award that recognizes students who advocate for human rights. Before I begin, I want to thank the following people. Dr. Vissing has been a wonderful mentor and friend and a champion of human rights and children's rights, and she's just really encouraged me and supported me and never made me feel stupid or incompetent, which is really significant because she's just so brilliant and accomplished. I just also want to thank Human Rights Educators USA. I'll talk more about them later. Nancy Flowers, Meredith Hood, and Christy, and all the folks at HRE USA, Salem State University, and the School of Social Work, including all the instructors and the students are wonderful. And shout out to Derek for technical assistance in putting this together. So who am I? Well, I'm a proud Salem State alum from the School of Social Work. I was a research assistant to Dr. Vissing. We worked as co-chairs of the HRE USA UNCRC working group. I'll talk more about that. Was a consultant to a public serving research firm. We just evaluated the child-friendly cities initiative for the city of Minneapolis, which just won CFCI status, the second city in the US to have such status. And I'm a child welfare policy implementation specialist. Basically, I help workers understand why our social welfare policies are created the way they are. And I ran a summer camp, and I also facilitate comprehensive sex ed currently for teenagers, which is pretty cool. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. I'll set the stage and just give you some background information. I'll talk about the award that I worked on and introduce you to our winners, share some reflections and some thoughts moving forward. And then hopefully we can have a really good discussion and you can ask some questions. So let's get to it. So first of all, I'm wondering who here has won an award when they were a kid? Feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the chat if you won an award, if you feel like sharing. I'm just curious if anybody, yeah, we got some hands raised. Yeah, cool. It felt pretty good, right? So yeah, feels good to win awards as kids. It's pretty common part of childhood. So let me tell you a little bit about this award. I can't talk about it without talking about Human Rights Educators USA, a wonderful organization founded in 2011. Just about 25 steering committee members, folks that are dedicated to educating about human rights. I was connected to this group because, like I said, I was a research assistant with Dr. Vissing, and that's where I met Nancy Flowers. She's pictured here. She's one of the founders of HRE USA and the originator of this award that I'm going to talk about. And she asked me to co-lead with her moving forward, and we'll get to more of that. So one of the documents that HRE USA really champions is this the UNCRC Universal Declaration, United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, excuse me. So it's been ratified by every UN member nation with the exception of the United States. Started in 1989, 54 articles that enumerate the rights of children, such as free thought and religion, protection from harmful work, the right to health, water, food, and a healthy environment. And so there was this working group in HRE USA. And so our mission really was to get this ratified in the US. That's our pie in the sky idea. And we do that by talking about it and getting different parts of society to endorse it. And so the thought was this award could be a way to talk about the CRC. And so there's this fellowship within HRE USA called the Edmonds Fellow. It's named for someone named Kirby Edmonds. He was a founding member of HRE USA. I didn't know him, but he sounds like a remarkable human being. And so here's Meredith Hood pictured. Meredith is giving a presentation after this one on the Ohio Justice Bus. I hope you stick around for that. And Meredith is also an exceptional human being. And she had this fellowship and she worked on this award and did the graphics and designed the website. And she did an amazing job, but it was through this opportunity, this Edmonds Fellowship. So what is this award I keep talking about? So it's the Youth in Action for Human Rights Award. And really the purpose is to recognize youth who are advocating for human rights in the United States. And here's some more about the purpose here. And you can find out on our website, which I'll share at the end. Some other significant elements of the award. The winners receive $500 in unrestricted funds. And it honors both a group and individuals in grades 9 through 12 who are, again, advocating for human rights. And there was a theme, and it was really important to us, which was promoting democracy and protecting human rights. That was the theme this year. So here's a little bit about our process. The award opened, I think it was August or September. I might have the timeline wrong, but it was late summer, early fall. So folks had to submit their application by October. We extended it because we didn't have a lot of, or as many as we hoped. So we extended the deadline. Then there was this award selection committee, which consisted of various human rights advocates and scholars. And we invited these finalists for an interview, and we talked amongst ourselves, and then we interviewed maybe again if we had follow-up questions. We really took this seriously, and we used a scoring rubric, and that was really important. I helped develop that to just eliminate implicit biases and just making sure that we're applying the same standards to all the applicants. And there was an online award ceremony which coincided with I think it was the UDHR. There was a big human rights celebration from HRE USA. And the award winners were honored there. And also we involved local media and their community in celebrations so they could be celebrated as well. So let me introduce you to the fabulous winners. This is Reem Kerja from Iowa City, Iowa. She's originally from Sudan, and she advocated to have Muslim holidays recognized on her school calendar. It took many years, but she got it. And she also created a scholarship fund for students so they could have equity and access to extracurricular activities. And I should point out, we couldn't decide between one individual winner. We were just so impressed with the individual applicants that we decided to award to 2 individuals. And so this is Clementine Koss from Los Angeles, California. She's done incredible work around climate justice and advocating for her high school to convert to 100% renewable energy. And climate justice is ultimately a human rights issue, but really amazing person as well. And I had the privilege of interviewing the group award, and this is the group winner. And to be honest, I was moved during the interview, and I had to hold back tears because it was just so powerful. I had a tour of this group. They made a genocidal and Holocaust resource center. So it's a physical location in their school that's going to be there forever. And it's where students can learn about genocide and the Holocaust. And it's important to point out that their state, they mandate that students must learn about it, but they took it a step further and they made this resource center. And it's not just about the past; it's also about the future and hope. And so they have this wall of hope where people can leave encouraging messages, and there's art exhibits by local artists, and there's like a take what you need corner. And it was really beautiful. It brought together students from all walks of life and experiences. So it was just so moving to really talk to these students. So let's hear from Reem. Let me see if this works. Hopefully the audio and everything goes, but let's hear from Reem.
I don't hear the audio, Eric.
You can't hear the audio? Ah, bummer. Maybe it's an audio thing. That's okay. You can find this on our website. I'm not going to waste time, but you can meet these fantastic students. I think I just did a Zoom audio thing. I forgot. So sorry about that, folks. But you can meet them and learn more about them on the website, which I will link to after this presentation. So sorry about that. Oops. Oh, there's Clementine, or Clementine, excuse me. Okay. So here's some examples of how the winners were celebrated in their communities. So this is the group award. It was in their local paper. And then I just want to point out on the left here, Reem was really a beacon of hope for her community. When I interviewed her after the award, she talked about how she felt she didn't feel comfortable being celebrated because the country where she was born was in conflict. But as you can see from that top comment there in this Facebook post, her community really rallied behind her and felt quite the opposite, and was very happy to celebrate something positive for the community. But I think that hesitance really speaks to Reem's character of putting others before herself. So, like I said, I did interview folks about the impact of this award, and I had the privilege of talking to Reem and Clementine, and also to Meredith as well. And it was incredibly powerful to interview them. I loved. I mean, as you heard, I have a degree in journalism, and I love talking to people and interviewing them. So, one of the first questions I asked was, how has this experience changed your life? And I'll read this quote to you. This is from one of our winners. So, growing up, I always thought I wasn't doing enough, or I wasn't enough. I piled things up. If I'm not enough, I need to make sure my community is better. When I got this award and discovered only 2 individuals got it, I felt fulfilled. I felt happy because it proved to me that I am doing enough, and the things that I'm doing are important. Sometimes when you put your all into something, regardless of how much you love it, you get burned out. Time and energy doesn't get recognized or acknowledged. Who else has been there when you do so much work and you're not sure anybody's watching? Who's felt that before? I think having the award and having all the work be recognized on a larger scale is empowering. There have been so many fails and things that have gone wrong. I'm going to keep pushing. I am representation of what youth activism could look like. I didn't have that. I want to bring that to other people. I also asked, why do you think awards like this are important? I mean, I know why they're important. The folks on the panel knew why, or on the selection committee know why it's important, but why do the young people think it's important? So being a youth activist takes a lot of time. Your opinions, knowledge, experience, perspective gets overlooked and not taken seriously. I think it's important to have awards that recognize the work that young people are doing. This is real work. This is having an impact. In my experience, I have been a young representative, so people can check off a box. But do they really want to hear what we have to say? Not so much. I think this solidifies young people are important to change, the future of change, and it's important to understand the change they are currently doing. And what I hear in that narrative is that being tokenized for being a young person. Oh, we have a young person here. Look, they checked off that box, but are they really listening? Are they really involving them in the process? and they sense that and they know that. I think having adults support for youth voices are so important to ensure not only they're ready to be the future, but the present too. They're embodying that change that is happening. I think that is so important to ensure that there are different generations, older supporting younger. Younger generations are the future, but they are also the present, bettering their community, not only in their minds, but they are bettering their community for the future. And I think it's important to show here, older generations lifting up younger generations. It's intergenerational. We don't do this work alone. How many of us have had mentors and folks who have supported us that really helped us to go on? And I just love the focus in the present. Youth are not the future. We hear that refrain, they're the future, but they're also the now, here and now. It's happening now. And finally, I asked, what do you want? What do you need from us? Meaning from the folks that run this award, or what do you need from adult activists? What do you want? I'm going to be completely honest with you. Money is great. The whole point is to showcase what the youth are doing. Whatever event you are doing, have them as a guest speaker to showcase what they are doing in their community, show that they are much more capable. Find opportunities for winners to speak with youth about their work. Also talk about how it changed their life. It's not only good for the winner. So what I hear from this is help us to keep going. And I just want to point out money. It's okay to want the money. I think that's okay. We live in this, society that, that kind of runs on money. We didn't make the rules. We had to play by them. And I think that's okay to acknowledge. And it was important to the committee that folks can use the money as they need it in their lives. Having a conversation, just meeting more adults who work in human rights is very cool. Every time I get to talk to someone, it's awesome. I love it because it goes back to that representation and seeing adults work in a field you don't hear about very often. Even having conversations like this, it's nice as a youth activist to get to hear from adult activists. And the person who I interviewed for this, who said this quote, was just, I could sense a lot of anxiety. Like, what am I going to do for the future? How do I become an activist? And this person was looking at me like as though I am like this magic, activist, and that I had this linear path. And I loved the excitement, but I could sense the anxiety. It was just, I think, good to have that conversation and say like, hey, life's going to be okay. It's going to be a winding path. Don't, have everything all planned out. And I think it can be really comforting just to hear that. And just to be, I guess, somewhat of a role model. It felt really nice to have that conversation. And it was almost like talking to my younger self, to be honest. So lastly, something I heard in these conversations with the youth is that they heard about the award from adults. They didn't see it themselves and think, oh, that's me. And maybe that's an issue of marketing, but I think it's significant because it takes adults to guide people to this award and tell them like, hey, you're worthy of this. You're doing really important work. Have you considered this? And so I think that's a message to us, to all of us, to find those youth in the community and guide them towards these opportunities. And just telling them that you think they're worthy of this can be really powerful. I see you. I see the hard work you're doing. I understand the struggles. And really, the message is you can grow the next generation of change makers who will sustain our democracy ultimately. We all have a role in this award. It's not just the people on the panel, or on the selection committee. It's not just the youth. We all have a role to play, I think, in this. And here's Meredith again. I also got to interview Meredith and have a really good conversation. And as you can see, this is energizing to see young people interested in this work. It helps stay connected with human rights work and meeting people who are doing the same work that I was. It was uplifting and promising to have the experiences of reading the applications, telling them they won. And so, Meredith is clearly not a teen. She's a human rights activist, and yet she shares some of those same feelings, I think. We all want that community. We all want people to help us energize us into doing this work. And I felt the same way when I was talking to Meredith. I'm like, oh yeah, all these feelings, I felt the same way. It kind of confirmed what I was also feeling. So I think it can also help us in our own work as activists and as folks that believe in human rights. It can help us sustain our own work by engaging younger people in this work. So in summary, here's those takeaways. Hope, I've mentioned, sustainability sustains us, the connection in the community, talking with other people who are as passionate as we are. And it really comes down to including folks in that work, and that will sustain our democracy, human rights. Will keep our democracy going. And really everyone wins from this award. It's not just the people who are the ultimate winners. I think we all can win. And I just want to point out there's this refrain or belief that young people will save us, right? The young people, they'll get it right this time. They're the future. And I don't think it's fair and to put it all on them. And I'm not the only one who thinks this way, but we need to work together. We need each other for that momentum and hope. And we need to share that burden of change. So now what? We have this award. What are we going to do? What's going to happen? Well, some thoughts and ideas are both the individual youth award winners. We asked them to be on our 2024 selection committee, and both of them said yes, they would love to be. So how cool is it that we have young people reading applications and passing the baton, or building that network of other young people who are up and coming activists or are currently activists. We want to connect that award to a theme each year. If you remember, our theme was democracy and protecting our democracy. So maybe more themes. There was some thoughts about having more visibility of the UNCRC and the UDHR. The winners I spoke to said, hey, I didn't know about these two documents. Really, I haven't really looked at them in detail. So that was great, but more visibility would be excellent. Just want to encourage adults to share this opportunity with youth. Like I pointed out, the youth found out about it from adults. So I think that's really the way we're going to get to the youth. And just think of those more ways to support and sustain young people, keep the momentum going, ask them what they want from us and need from us to make this award, to help them realize their goals and keep their work going. And just think of more opportunities for community and connection, because that's really what it's all about. No one's really self-made. That's really a myth. We need each other. We're social creatures, and that's the truth. So I want to end with this quote from Reem. Through the darkness we have been experiencing, it's really great. We have something to celebrate. And I echo that sentiment. For me, this award was deeply personal. Our country is experiencing extremism and really textbook fascism, and participating in this award felt like a way for me to do something to support our democracy when I felt helpless. And fascists, as you know, they create this mythical history of a nation. They find others to target, they blame, to galvanize support for the belief that this totalitarian nation, will save us. But by supporting the people who defend our rights, we actively work to counteract that narrative, that rhetoric, and it keeps our democracy intact. So I invite you to not feel helpless, to share this award with others, talk about the winners, to find ways to celebrate young people who are acting with democratic values and principles in your community and your organization. Collaborate with those young people, keep the wind in their sails. We must defend our democracy, and we need to do it with awards and not just a weapon. So I think you can defend our democracy by celebrating and upholding the people who protect and defend human rights. And with awards like this, we all win. So thank you very much, everyone. And we'll go into discussion. Here's the link to the website. You can use your smartphone, or you can use that link. I can also drop it in the chat so you can see it as well. But if you want to talk, have any questions, some folks who are involved in the award might actually even be here today with us. So yeah, let's talk.
Eric, I think that was just wonderful. And I have to say, as a professor in the School of Education, talking a lot about this with my teachers in training, one of the things that they have spoken a lot about is how their students who are younger, like say K to 5, are these blossoming activists in so many ways. And I think there's just so much hope, right? There's so much hope here. And I love what you said about the onus should not just be on the youth or on the children, right? We have to partner. And and help lift them up and do this together. So terrific.
Thank you, Kara. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Feel free to drop in the Q&A as well.
Eric, thank you for that. You come up with these great, what I would call one-liners. And I think I want to kind of come in and you talked about fighting all this, not with a weapon, but with an award. I just think that is really powerful because when I think a young person makes that commitment to apply for that award, they're taking a risk, which is really important. You know, I have a question about how do you perceive, or could you conjecture on how politicians would view this award as something that they can, I wouldn't say hijack, but to bring into their own, platform to benefit them as a politician and not society? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess I wonder about the ideology of the person, right? Because we do have different types of politicians, right? We do have um, politicians that are endorsing, extremism and fascist ideology. So I don't think they're the ones that are gonna support this award. I could be wrong, but it seems like they're counter. I don't know if there's a way to I don't know if you can believe in both. So I think you have to find the champions that do believe in human rights and that do believe that those are a pillar of our democracy. And I think it's okay. It's okay if they see it as an opportunity um, to to further their platform, I guess, somewhat. But because ultimately, if we all, the real goal is to get people to talk about human rights as fundamental. So as long as people are talking about that, I think that's essential to our democracy. You can't really once you open that box and that reality, you can't really put it back down. So as long as we're having these conversations about human rights, I think that's really the main goal. But that's a really good point. Like, how do we engage those politicians? And there are plenty that are very open about their support for human rights and children's rights. So it's finding those champions. Maybe it starts with them. And also just wondering, I don't know if human rights really resonates. I have to look at studies with youth. I don't know if they know, like so many youth don't even know about the UNCRC. They don't know about the UDHR in our country, in our nation. So I don't even know if that's a talking point or a voting. I don't know if that stirs people to go to the polls. I don't know, but I would love for it to be a reason that people are voting and engaging with democracy.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have had many conversations about, I find it appalling that the United States of America have not ratified that document because we're betting on our Constitution, which is very one-sided. And I've come across in my research how the CRC really talks to our mandates and legislative activities in this country. One thing just came to mind. I mean, what if you had a list of like politicians who signed, a letter supporting this, so that, it became more into the mainstream, so that maybe their colleagues on the other side of the aisle would say, hey, why have you done this? You're maybe having inviting them to the conversation. That's, what I try to do sometimes. If I disagree with someone, I want to invite them for a cup of tea. What makes them tick. But I really appreciate this presentation, because I didn't know this really existed on this level, and seeing those two young people just is incredible, because we're going to work with them as adults and in partnership and collaborate. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for those thoughts and those ideas. That's exactly what this discussion is for.
Yep. Thanks. Good to see you too.
Great to see you. Great to be seen.
I do have another question, but I'll wait and see if anyone else wanted to jump in. Let's see. From Alan, if other applications were, quote, good, have you thought about posting them to give others opinions about options, or others about options for youth activism?
Great question. Great idea. Yes, I would love to do that. As we showed, this is the first year of the award. So we have so many directions we can go in. And I think it comes down to resources and energy. And we have that. Meredith was wonderful, and we had that fellowship. But you're right, we should show the winners. I even think it would be cool to have an element of audience voting and participation. So if people had to vote, I don't know how we would weigh that, right? It's not based just on audience opinion, but that might engage people to share, and that might encourage sharing of it. But you're right, we should show all the people who are doing the work. But then what do we do? Maybe there's some finalists. Maybe there would be, because we can't show everyone's, maybe some people, their work doesn't really align with our values and our mission. But yeah, great idea. Thank you. Absolutely.
So I'm going to jump in with a question, Eric.
Mhm.
So when you were, I guess, first reviewing applications and looking at those who had applied, did it come across at all that they were nervous to start their initiatives because some of them are very lofty, very heavy, powerful movements? How did they convey those emotions, and what did they say about that initiation process? Like, I'm going to initiate this idea. This is how we're going to do it. And I know Reem said she was worried about it because of, where she came from and what would the end result of this be? So how did they express, their fears and concerns?
Mm.
Did those motivate them to continue on in these, initiatives?
Mm. That's an excellent question. You should be a researcher and or journalist. Uh, that's actually a good question, and I want to ask them that. Um, I didn't really touch on that, but I can talk about the folks that I interviewed. And actually, Meredith is here. Meredith, if you're listening, you are welcome to chime in. Would love to have you speak. But I did interview the group. And when the group, the Kittanini, the Holocaust Resource Center, I think it just started as an idea, and it was a bunch of like, oh, that's cool, yeah, let's do that. So it just kind of snowballed. It wasn't like this grand plan. I think that's how life starts, right? You have this like little voice in your head says that would be cool, but then what are those protective factors? What are those things that sustain things? I'm sure that's been studied, and I'm sure um, it's out there, but also there's some element of just like, it's just this energy inside of me without getting too spiritual. But there's this something that made me keep going. But Meredith, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Hi, yes. Just one quick thing is Clementine, the student in Los Angeles, she had a great community behind her because she was part of the Human Rights Student Task Force. But interestingly, as a parallel to that, Reem didn't have anybody supporting her. She was really on an island, which both equally impressive, but yes.
And actually, Meredith, as you mentioned that the students at the Resource Center, they had a teacher that was very inspiring. The teacher was the one. It was really the students' work, but they did credit their teacher for being the one to educate them, to be encouraging. So I think that speaks to having those adults in their lives that keep them going. But as Meredith pointed out, sometimes those adults don't exist, and that's pretty remarkable. Where does that come from? Where do they get that resolve?
Any other questions? I would love to bring up a little bit too, Eric, you talk about some of the quotes were just, I wrote them all down because I think Matthew said this too, some of the one-liners that you have said, and also the students, just so moving. One of the things that was commented on is that one of them said that sometimes when you put your all into something, you get burnt out. And I think as adults, we know this. But what a beautiful lesson for them to learn, and to see through this award that all of their hard work is coming to fruition. Like, it's being noticed and being recognized in a way that is crucial. Did they talk more about that, that feeling of burnout and, just kind of, I don't know, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, what you saw really is what I got as well. But I think just in that conversation, it's like, yeah, I could totally understand, or I feel you. And right, and how powerful is it when someone just sees us? We've been seeing David Brooks, a journalist, just recently wrote a book. I think it's How to See People. But basically, when you just listen to their story, listen to their struggle, and just really get in their shoes and just when you really, oh yeah, I can understand why you would feel that way, and really have that empathy and really have that compassion, that can go a long way in connecting with other human beings. So yeah, I wonder how recognizing that in anybody's efforts, right? Oh, that must have been really hard. How did you do that? How did you overcome those obstacles? Just giving them that breath and that space to talk about that could relieve that pressure, or just be like, oh, you see me. Oh, God, it's not just me.
Right.
I'm not alone, right? How wonderful that feels.
So true.
Um, so that's a really good point. I'm really glad you
Mm,
mentioned it. But it's resilience, right? It's resilience. That's what
absolutely.
resiliency is. When we um, have those obstacles, like we keep going, like it's a part of the process. The struggles
Mhm.
are part of the process. And young people, I think we have the society, right? This is a tangent, but let's go with it. That we instant gratification. We have 10-second videos on certain platforms, everything instant, instant, instant. Well, guess what? As you all know, people here probably have some degrees, right? It takes a long time, right? It's a struggle, it's a path. And so the sooner we can teach that to young people, and deprogram them from just instant access to everything, and remind them like, oh, uh, big things sometimes take time, and you're going to have some setbacks, and that's okay. That's actually
Yeah.
life. And if we can teach them that, I think they're going to thrive.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And the resiliency, like you said, amazing. Yeah.
I have some thoughts and questions in that order. All right.
Mm.
So Nancy Flowers funded the Flowers Fund, right? This is another example of a single individual who says something needs to be done. I'm going to step up and do it. And she's put money into it to make it happen. And the discussion on her work has been very interesting. Likewise, Kirby uh, Edmonds passed away. And so the Edmonds Fellowship is a fund that got created in honor of this man, right? And so again, a single person who did something that triggered an event. All right, so it's a message of a lot of empowerment. I think that I would like everybody to have here today. Um, uh, so there's a lot of struggle around the grant on, is it for one person? Is it for two people? Is it for an organization? Is it a group of people? What's the criteria that we should be using? And so there was a discussion on the grant of, so the Edmonds Fellows for grad students, kind of, or college people. And so Flowers is like for high school, right? So with this, what are we going to do? Just how old? How old can you be to be an activist? And so there was a discussion of, well, it just needs to be high school people. And then we said, well, what about middle schoolers? All right. And so they decided not to do that, but that like maybe in the future we will. A few years ago, uh, I had a competition in Salem for the Salem Youth Rights Action Award. All right, and we were going to give one award. It turns out that we had like 5 different groups apply, and it was great. And so, oh heck, we honored them all, and it was wonderful. And we had some, food, but we had a little presentation, and these were elementary school students. All right, these were not older ones. All right, and so they brought their mom and their grandma and their dad and uncle and Aunt Sue. They all came. They got to see their kids get a little certificate. The bookstore gave them awards. All right, this was very exciting. All right, so we we could be doing that again. We haven't done it for some political and COVID reasons, but this is something that I think we need to be doing. So we've got this K-12 emphasis that nobody knows what human rights are, right? I teach a human rights class. Nobody comes in knowing even that they got any rights except they can drive when they're 16 and drink when they're 21, or 18, depending on where you are, right? So with this, we really need to embed human rights education throughout the whole network. of education, from finding out you're pregnant all the way through, the time that you die. All right. So it is a never ending thing. So how do we do it? And that becomes a problem, right? And that's a question I want to just pose to you, because we have a few minutes, to have this kind of discussion. Like Taylor and I, Taylor has not gotten introduced. And so we need to introduce Taylor, who's my grad assistant this year. And this has been great to work with them, because we have put out social media, we sent emails out. I sent emails out, I think 3 times at least, to the university and so on. And we don't have very big turnout. Right? And I sent at least 900 emails out, personalized emails. Right? So how do we get people to care about human rights? And how do you start to send more people into this award, that you're talking about, Eric? Because part of the applications got extended because you didn't have enough really deep applicants. All right, so this is a question. One more thing, and then let's open it up for your thoughts. In November, the 20th, it is the 35th anniversary of the CRC. And it turns out, international people, I don't mean to bore you for a minute, but I'm gonna. All right, so there is this NCSS, or National Council of Social Studies. And so they're having their conference in Boston, which is basically here. And so I'm opening my house. If you guys want to come, you can stay with me for free, right? Just bunk up and be buddies, and Christy Rudelius Palmer at HRE USA is going to come, and we're going to create an event here on Salem's campus on the 20th and invite people to know more about it. And then on the 21st, Christy's trying to get us the venue at the Edward Kennedy Museum and have a concert or theatrical performance or something there. And then the NCSS conference starts on the 22nd, and that will go on for like 3 days. So this is a little block of time right around Thanksgiving then that we can really use that to mobilize a lot of action around the 35th anniversary of the CRC. So when we talk about social action and what can we be doing, here's an opportunity, right? And we can make it happen, but how do we make it successful? How do we bring people into looking at human rights in general, or child rights, or, as Eric's pointing out, the award? So what are your thoughts about how can we really move this forward?
Wow, and well, thank you. There's a lot in there. And I love all your thoughts always. Well, I guess the researcher in me thinks, I like logic models and thinking of those process outcomes and those right? So measuring that and just having goals and those SMART goals, specific, measured, and all those fun things. It takes time and just a lot of thought and talking. But also just thinking about how different parties and different people can get involved. Like I hope the point you get with this award is that all it takes, like, little actions to feel like you're involved, just sharing it with a couple people, like a small ask. And I think it's those small victories. I study that the dialectical empowerment model, right? So when you have these small little victories with groups, it snowballs. So this is a small victory, having the award, establishing it. So what's the next? How do we just go a little bit further? There's a what's it called? The Japanese philosophy I like. It's called, I think it's Kaizen. It's where you just have a little bit. What's a little modification you can do? Yeah, it's great to have this awesome big idea. It'd be cool to have millions of people tuning into this award and celebrating. Okay, so but what's a little thing we can do to tweak it and make it just a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger? So playing the long game, but thinking in the short term. So that's how it is. It snowballs and builds. And if that sounds hopeful, if that sounds like, oh, my head in the clouds, yeah, it's because it is, because I got hope, and that's what we need to keep it going. So I'd say I'd love to plan with you. I'd love to sit down and really think about those goals, those little steps, those little process measures that we can do to get to that main goal. But yeah, if other folks have any ideas of how to get there, love to hear your ideas as well. But I really love the idea of just making it a little bit bigger every year, a little bit more people, more applicants, bigger celebrations, getting legislators, like you pointed out, Matthew, getting them to celebrate these youth. Like, how do we just keep expanding? That's really what it's all about.
And I think you're right. A little can go a long way, right? Is there, Yvonne had mentioned, you know, the recognition in Salem for our youngest activists. Have you thought about seeing how this award goes? It's coming into its second year, but also the potential of either opening or developing another award for our youngest?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think about, you know, my experience in nonprofit leadership and management, and you want to think about your mission creep, right? When you're doing too much. So just thinking about, so again, being research minded, like what's already out there, what exists, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, I love that idea. I was a substitute teacher in Salem Public Schools. They actually have a diversity club in the elementary school. I forget what they call it, Rainbow Club. I don't know, but it was really cool to see that they have that in elementary school. So I'm saying that because, yeah, I think there's the audience out there who doesn't love a cute little, like, you know, 5-year-old kindergartner getting an award for something. Like, that's adorable. People really react to that. So yeah, I think it's a matter of looking at what's out there. But in terms of expanding the award, I don't, you know, I just always think about that mission creep and resources and what's our focus. But I'd love to explore that, and I would love to support. You know what? I hope someone gets inspired from this award and the process, and hopefully maybe that they will feel inspired to create an award for elementary kids. So there's a million ways it could go, and I'd be happy to support them. But that's a really good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love that. Great idea.
All right.
Matthew, go ahead.
Yes, Cara, thank you so much. This question is actually for you. You said you're in the School of Education. Are you down to Salem State? Thanks for
Yes.
doing what you do, because teaching teachers is not easy. And I recall when I was in London, one thing we did, when I was there, dyslexia was the biggest buzzword. And we found that a lot of elementary, you know, first years and stuff like that, teachers didn't know about it. So that those kids would get through the early years and then get into middle school or high school. You know, I forget what the equivalent is in the UK. But the teachers wouldn't be able to pick up the signs. So what we did as a group of people, we kind of like petitioned Parliament to say, listen, we can save you 3 billion quid to institute these specific things in the teacher education program, like a dyslexia toolkit, you know. So, you know, filtered paper, colored paper, stuff like that. But it would allow that teacher to teach the kid for 8 weeks before they got assessed. Okay, so we had that scheme going. My question is in teacher education in this country, why couldn't we have an HRE component that would provide that exposure and access to best practice, so to speak, to provide that information to, you know, our youngers and middles in the schools? Do you see
Great.
that happening, or is that not?
So that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be collaborating with Yvonne and having been introduced to her in the fall. I think it's just as important, right, if not more, than all of the other initiatives that we're seeing. Especially, you know, there's this huge pull right now for SEL, social emotional learning, and there's just such an overlap between what we're talking about today and how we're hoping our students will interact with the environment and the world around them. And it's not something that can be pushed to the side. So I hope, I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but I hope that we can see this as a greater initiative and focus in our schools, because it is, as I've said to Yvonne many times, in my opinion, so necessary and so critical. So, and one of my collaborators, Cesar, is here. She's from Turkey, and we are working on a peace language project in some of my classes right now, which also overlaps beautifully with a lot of these issues. So that's an excellent question, and one that I hope I can report more on in the future.
Yeah. And I want to follow that up, because Eric was talking about, you know, how do we get more youth involved? How do we get the word out? And I know, because I'm a teacher, I don't teach in the classroom anymore, but my wife is a teacher, okay? And 4 times a year, unfortunately, they have to do school shooting drills, okay? And that's a huge HRE concern. Why couldn't we, do the drill, but then get together and download on an HRE perspective on why, we have to do this because your human rights are actually being violated by one individual. So it's almost like you could do, have that discussion.
Absolutely. And, I was actually just doing an observation of one of my master's students the other day, during which they had a drill. No one knew it was a practice drill, but it was a drill. And afterwards, we debriefed on that. And she said, this is so much more of just a drill. This is not, hey, it's another drill. It was first graders. They were scared. And she had migrant children in her classroom who had no idea what was going on. And it was just an unbelievable experience to watch, but folds so much into what you're saying, right? And it was just a hard conversation and so hard to witness. So, Cesar, did you want to? I see you jumped on camera. Did you want to add anything? Thanks for being here.
Actually, it is amazing to follow all of your presentations. Thank you very much for getting me this opportunity also. And we have been working together with Kara as I have initiated some peace language programs and designed and implemented in elementary schools, especially. I'm giving the program, first of all, to the school teachers, because they are at the center of this story. If they get what the peace language is, which is based on getting more connected with feelings and needs, actually. And they can easily get connected, guess the feelings of needs of the students at very early ages. There are some tools and practices how we can make them more and more connected with their own feelings and needs, so then it will have a great impact on society, actually, which is a rippling effect, which we can call. I've been introduced with Salem State University by dearest Melissa from the UL University. So we have been working on this, what kind of projects and programs we can design and implement together, especially starting from the one of the pilot study. Actually, Kara, maybe you can give our example, just even it is just a small start as a pilot.
I'm working right now with a group of undergraduates who are starting their teaching practicum, and we just want to know what their awareness is of a peace language. Have they heard of the phrase or the terminology before? And we are having them observe their classrooms and how students interact, how they talk with one another, what their behaviors are like, and to come back to us with something that needs to be resolved, a conflict that they've witnessed, et cetera, and how peace language can actually help come to a resolve and, come to actionable solutions. So it's in process, and we're looking to roll it out more as the months go on. So very small scale, but it's a start and an introduction. So,
Well, I have
Yvonne,
to
go ahead.
interject at this point. So Kara and Cesar need to work with Greg Carroll, who is our peace studies expert at Salem. He's been on sabbatical, and that's why you haven't met him yet, but he's here today and he'll be back in the States. So I think that you would benefit by talking, because he's, well grounded in the international peace movement. One couple of other things, just FYI, when we had these youth rights award for the elementary and middle schoolers years ago, it was wonderful. The one group of students decided that they would paint the trash cans down at the park to have a water and a sea life theme, so that people would understand if they threw trash down into the water, that it was killing the fish. Right. In another, they had a park, and they had these ugly walls, and the kids designed the art, and then they came and painted it, and it was on "This is our community," and it looked at housing and food and the way that people connected. There are all kinds of things that we could be doing. Eric, maybe you want to talk. We're running out of time, but mention about the child-friendly community initiatives. We could be doing one here in Salem. We could be doing one in all kinds of communities where we bring everyone together to become a child rights respecting community. In the State House in Beacon Hill in Massachusetts, we have now gotten through all of the steps to create a children's human rights committee, and it will now be part of the state. And so we're really excited that we've been working with Senator Joan Lovely, and that has now gone through the committee, and we've gotten all the approvals. So that will be happening. One last thing is, if you come next week on the 5th, Sandy Sucott will be talking about her donation of a UDHR K-12 education program to the university. And so she's giving us this website called The World as It Could Be. It is full of all kinds of techniques, materials, programs that we can be doing to implement in schools right now on human rights. It especially focus on arts and humanities, because people listen to music, and theater. So we could be doing all of these things. It is a gift. It is a moment in time that we have to seize the opportunity. So we can't do anything alone, right? We have to do it together.
Real quick, Yvonne, just thank you for sharing that. And Cara, there is a program that I helped with last summer. It was called Leap for Education. It's at Salem Middle School. So the youth, it helps. It's like a summer enrichment type program, but youth traditionally marginalized communities. But I wonder, there's different tracks. I did the ocean one and cleaning up garbage, things like that. But I wonder if there could be a human rights one, because these communities are traditionally marginalized. Can they feel empowered? Can the young people feel like they do have power? What are some things they want to change? And I'd be happy to connect you. I'm not doing the program this summer, but that could be an awesome opportunity to empower young people.
Yes, thank you.
So let's talk.
I don't see any more questions. Eric, thank you. They were also powerful, right? Thank you so much for doing what you do, and just having such a great conversation with us. Pleasure to have you here.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank you for moderating, and thank you everyone. And thank you, Yvonne.
Well, thank you all. And so what I think your presentation has left us with is the opportunity to see all the wonderful things we could be doing, right? And if we do it together, things can happen. There's a constant theme today about how one person or small group of people can change and make things better. And so that was the intent for the conference. That was the theme of the day. And certainly you are all capitalizing beautifully on that. Okay, so I can hope that Cara and Cesar and Greg, you guys can talk about this whole peace movement. Think about how you want to build a November 35th anniversary for the CRC event here, both thinking about the State House, the Edward Kennedy Museum events, and things that we can be doing on campus. Our next presentation is by Meredith, who you've already met. And so Meredith has an interesting history all of her own. Then she became working with HRA USA, and then we recruited her to be a fellow, and she's been a marvelous addition to the fellows. And then she has taken upon herself to have this wonderful new job that she will tell you about. And so thank you to Vanessa for coming and introducing her and learning another piece, because Vanessa, for those of you who do not know her, is in the political science department, and she does international work around the area of human rights, among other things. And so I think that you will find with this group of people and Meredith's work some really interesting things, again, that showcase what young people are doing to change the world. So thank you both for doing this.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. And hi, everyone. As Yvonne said, my name is Vanessa Ruger. I teach here at Salem State University in the Politics, Policy, and International Relations Department. I'm really glad to be here and listening a little bit on the presentation of this conference. My job is mostly to introduce our speaker, who is Meredith Uhud, but I'm also going to take care of the Q&A portion after she concludes her remarks. So Meredith works for the Ohio Justice Bus, and she lives in Columbus, Ohio, and she's the program coordinator for the organization. She holds a master's degree in human rights practice from the University of Arizona and was the 2023 Edmonds Fellow for Human Rights Educator. So thank you for being here. Congratulations on these achievements, and the